Hey, everybody,
And we
welcome. Yossi, there we go.
I got to cut you off already. Let's go. We just got started. First, second cutoff. That is a record. We are live.
Yeah, let's go. Yossi, welcome to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark. And of course, joining us today is the car dealership guy, Yossi. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm amped. I'm excited. We got a packed show today. Amazing guest. Great headlines in the industry. It's going to be a good one.
And you had an awesome podcast drop this week, Toyota related nonetheless. Anybody who hasn't had the chance to listen to it yet, listen. One of the best episodes of the podcast, I think, ever, Yossi.
It's doing crazy numbers. So that's definitely a testament to that. Jack Hollis, incredible human. 33 years at Toyota. He really told his entire story. Super authentic. Before we started the podcast, and transparent. Before we started the podcast, Jack looks at me. We were on the camera already and said, Yossi, he said, you need to do your job right. Everything's on the table. And I was like, wow, okay. Wow. So I told Jack, I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll do a little rumor rundown, a new segment on the podcast. And I start going through all the rumors that people, created about Jack leaving Toyota. And he was just an incredible guest. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do next.
Well, this is a great format and forum for executives to come and share and dispel and put aside the rumors, including I remember how he reacted to the health one, right? He laughed and said, well, absolutely no credibility to that whatsoever. And there's so many rumors out there. And Yossi, today's show is going to be very similar to that. I have it on good word from the green room that we were in moments ago that every one of today's guests take the same approach. They want it all out there. So coming up today, it's awesome. We've got Bill Vaughn, GM of Al West Nissan. He's going to talk to us a little bit about a turnaround in progress with Nissan, Yossi, and you've talked to him in the past. We've also got Ed Petersen from Wrench, who dispatches technicians out all over the country. Excited to learn his secret sauce, recruiting, some other things. And then we've got Ryan Knight, Director of Operations at the Knight Auto Group, who really has an interesting trajectory through a family business, which includes experience elsewhere outside his own business. So excited to bring you today's show. As a reminder, everybody, leave comments, questions across social. Have a chance to post and ask your questions. As Yossi always says, you will change the trajectory of today's show by the questions and the engagement we get from our audience. So let's go, Yossi.
Incredible stuff. Sam, can we just say a quick congratulations? I heard the Ziegler Group acquired a Jeep store.
It's super exciting. Yesterday, Aaron, for a long time, has wanted to bring the Jeep franchise home to join the rest of the Stellantis franchises that we have at our corporate headquarters in Kalamazoo, Michigan on Stadium Drive. And yesterday, he signed the deal with Ryan LaFontaine Auto Group, and brought that acquisition in-house. So now Jeep resides at our corporate headquarters on Stadium Drive in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Yossi. So thank you.
Incredible stuff. Congratulations. Yeah. Really big stuff.
Lot of M&A activity out there going on in automotive and in our world as well. There may be some future announcements coming up soon as well. So, well, Yossi, should we turn to the news? Let's do it. First up today, for finance managers, GMs, and GSMs trying to figure out if lending is getting more challenging in today's marketplace this morning, we at CDG are ready to report it is. And this, according to DealerTrack, auto credit access declined in April. The all loans index dropped from 96.3% to 95.7%. Subprime lending saw the most significant change with substantial 280-point decrease in share as lenders become more cautious with higher risk borrowers. The share of loans with terms greater than 72 months increased by 130 basis points in April, while negative equity, everyone saw this coming, borrowers owing more on their car than they're worth, rose by 10 basis points. My takeaway here, Yossi, is that this underlines the importance of having a great relationship with every lender, because this is how we deliver that ultimate automotive experience to every consumer, is by placing them in a loan. And you've got to have that relationship in today's world more than ever, because it is getting tougher. I would tell you, for large groups where you have that relationship, lenders are coming out of the woodwork trying to get more business. I don't know what you're seeing out there, Yossi.
Yeah, look, I think relationships is an interesting term in this business because some say, "Oh, we're relationship based," and we've all experienced the one that say it but don't mean it. And I think it manifests in the times where there is maybe a little bit more uncertainty and you need some form of stability from your partner. I think April was a very unstable month, right? to kind of give a quick analogy to the stock market, well, the stock market ended pretty flat, more or less, for the month. But throughout that month, there was crazy ups and downs driven by lots of uncertainty in the market. And so I think that, coupled with the levels of 60 plus day subprime delinquencies, which just continue rising and
Yeah.
are on levels that we haven't seen in well over a decade, it is pretty concerning. That
Yeah.
said, to see declines and auto loan rejections across the board, it's, subprime used car dealers who are, predominantly subprime or have a larger concentration of subprime consumers will feel it first. Some potential tightening with captives could also pose some risk to franchise dealers, but there's no doubt about it that it's going to impact used car dealers disproportionately.
Yeah. All right. Coming up next, House Republicans yesterday introduced a bill to end federal EV tax credits. Not a shock for anyone. House Republicans unveiled a bill yesterday to eliminate tax credits for electric vehicles and gradually phase out incentives for clean energy sources. The proposal would end the $4,000 tax credit. That's important for our audience, Yossi, for used EVs after this year, and the $7,500 credit for new EVs after 2026, with additional restrictions capping eligibility for manufacturers who've sold more than 200,000 EVs since 2010. Repealing these credits could derail billions in planned investments. It obviously upends and challenges OEMs. But is any of this really a shock? This is a promise that the administration has made since the very beginning to equalize true demand with supply and create a kind of cleaner line to implementation of EV, or at least clean technologies, COC.
Yeah, look, we still don't know what market equilibrium is, and lots of proponents for EVs are saying that, hey, we want to see, we want these to be repealed because we want to get to market equilibrium. That'll
Yeah.
create long term a healthier market. I do think there's one point here that's important for dealers, though, and that is that in a market where EV tax credit gets repealed, which it will likely get repealed, liquidity matters even more. Turn time matters a lot. And so
Yeah.
I think that if I am right now in the shoes of any dealer that's carrying, any meaningful amount of EVs, I am focusing on my turn time. I need to be moving my EVs faster than all my other inventory, period. I'll put a shameless plug here, but I invested in a company called Plug. It's a auto tech startup. Shameless plug. The company's called Plug. Go figure. But basically, the thesis there that I believed in was that they're helping dealers liquidate EV inventory quicker, right? Get their turn time down. And so now, putting the company aside, I simply think that the EVs are simply more risk, right? There's still great reward potentially if you know how to move them well, but they're also more risk the longer you hold them on your lot. And so I would not be holding EVs at the same days on day supply as I'd be holding a regular, non EV on the lot. I would simply move them faster because it's more risk, and holding costs, could fluctuate either way. I think it's a good thing. We're gonna, hopefully start getting some discover market equilibrium in the near future. But that's sort of what I'd be doing in dealer shoes right now.
Good advice for used car managers everywhere looking to acquire inventory and or hold inventory, new and used. So brings us up, Yossi, to our third topic for the day, Honda. So last week we saw Toyota forecasting tariff impacts on its business, and it was in the billions. Today, Honda is forecasting a $3 billion tariff expense. Honda's forecasting a massive hit from U.S. tariffs, though it believes it can offset about 1.35 billion through strategic countermeasures, like moving Civic hybrid production from Japan to the United States. The Japanese automaker expects its annual operating profit to plummet 59% in the fiscal year ending March 2026, down from the previous year. Honda will put on hold for approximately 2 years a planned announcement in April 24 to build an EV supply chain in Ontario, Canada, due to the current slowdown in EV demand. So first Toyota, now Honda. We're starting to see some of the OEMs predicting impact of tariffs, Yossi.
Yeah, I think this is, again, shifting something overnight. To me, that's a form of survival, right? These are big companies. You don't shift things overnight unless you have to. And so, in light of all the change in the market and the news, Honda's doing what it needs to do to keep, selling cars. Um, don't have much more to say on that. I simply think that, again, if I'm a dealer, thinking about diversification, because we simply don't know yet where tariffs and costs will be absorbed across the value chain, right? Between the OEM,
Yeah.
the retailer, the consumer. And so I think the more you can diversify in terms of brand mix, I think that's the right move here.
Last week, Yossi, we started talking about Nissan and announced the job cuts and the impact to Nissan overall. CDG didn't break that news, but was one of the first to market with it. So today, we announced Nissan's unveiled its comprehensive re-Nissan strategy, a full system reset built around 7 major initiatives to overhaul struggling operations. The plan targets $3.2 billion in total savings and details specific steps to reach and achieve that. And it includes the job cuts that we reported on earlier. I'm excited for today's episode, Yossi, because we're actually hearing from a Nissan dealer that is in the process of a pretty significant turnaround and has done pretty cool things within his Nissan world, Yossi.
Yeah, I like this a lot. So I think a couple things. I think most corporate executives are scared. And I think in this case, you're seeing some courage, right? They're making very asymmetric moves. This is not, I mean, you're talking about cutting all production after 2026 or, like new production. When you're talking about focusing on lower volume, right? That signals trying to target higher margin, reviving Infinity as a brand. I think lots of good positive signals. It's drastic signals, it's asymmetric signals, but I think this is how you win, right? How do they say like insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results? I also
Yeah.
don't think you can make slight tweaks to the system and get meaningful change. So to me, it simply signals an asymmetric bet, which I think many large companies are scared to do. Big corporate executives are scared to do because you, as they say, see the large company executive in many cases is just trying to keep their job and not get fired. But I think it's going to make it interesting, and we're going to see how they're going to fare out here over the next couple of years.
In fact, it reminds me of what Brian Benstock said on the show Monday. He talks about a successful company can quickly adapt to marketplace, and shedding the number of jobs and implementing a plan like this is a sign of a successful company. And to your point, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out long term. So, all right, Yossi, before we go to our first guest, later on in today's show, it's going to be interesting to talk with Ed Petersen, CEO of Wrench, and find out about the technicians that he and his company are putting out into the world to do mobile service. So that coming up soon. But first, we're excited to invite and welcome Bill Vaughn to the show, General Manager, Al West Nissan. Bill Vaughn, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Bill, welcome. It's been our favorite. Bill was hosting our community podcast, or reaction cast as we're calling. So it's great to finally have you on a segment. Bill, for anyone that hasn't listened to you on a reaction cast or doesn't know your background, can you just give us a quick overview of who you are, where you work?
Yeah, so I'm a general manager at Al West Nissan, going on about 90 days now. We'll get into a little more detail on that, but been in the car business going on 10 years now. Was at my last dealership for 8 years. Like a lot of people, I got into business it just happened. It wasn't a choice necessarily. I started out as the lone BDC guy. All I did was set up appointments with customers, and then the salespeople took over. The place saw potential in me. Dealers saw potential in me. I was a salesperson in a short period of time. Then I was in sales for about 3 months before I became a finance manager. I did finance for about a year and a half before becoming a sales manager. Was a sales manager for about 2 years before becoming the GSM. And after all that, here I am at Atlas Nissan as the GM.
You're cutting in and out just a little bit, but I think it's stabilized. So we'll keep going. So Bill, can you start us off with you recently joined Al West, if I'm understanding correctly. You've been going through a turnaround. Can you tell us a little bit about the turnaround you're just involved in right now, what you're doing at this dealership?
Yeah, that's kind of what happened is that the dealership needed a new vision, needed somebody to come in and kind of change their expectations, change goals, and the timing was obviously interesting with everything going on with Nissan. But basically, came in, knew the store a little bit just because of a relationship with the current ownership. So I did have some insights into the store, so I kind of knew what I was getting into, but I didn't. I got into a lot more than I was expecting, for sure.
Give us some
And really,
details, Bill. Where have you focused on, like since joining? What has been the key levers that you've been focusing on as far as turning around the store? Also, if you can share some insight on, was the store losing money, break even? Is it profiting now? Like, where are we at in the spectrum? But let's start with the first question, which is, what levers have you been pulling in this short amount of time you've been at the dealership?
Yeah, great question. And as they say, the best laid plans. I came into the store. I really wanted to get involved in the service department through some recommendations. As I took on this opportunity, I was suggested to do that. Got into the store, and I quickly realized that the service department kind of had its stuff together, and there was a complete lack of experience in the sales department. So I had to kind of switch gears last minute, and
Mm.
I've really had to focus on the sales department, just trying to reset it. Honestly, I wasn't even trying to sell cars at first, and I know that sounds crazy, but I just really felt like I needed to apply the principle that I learned at Rydell, which is why market to people if you're only going to disappoint them when they come to the store. So really to focus on training the people, developing processes, merchandising correctly, so that we're really prepared to serve the guests when they come in. So that's where I really started.
Yay, Bill says, Doug Klassen, good to see you live. Comment from social. Thanks for that comment. Keep it up to our audience. Yossi.
Excellent. And so, Bill, can you tell us a little bit more in terms of people? I understand you mentioned some training, right? You're also a Nissan store. So on top of turning around the dealership, you're also part of a franchise that's attempting a turnaround in a way. Can you just reconcile that for us, right? How are you balancing the two of those? And given the fact that Nissan hasn't done so well, and you're on top of that, you needed to turn around this store. How are you balancing those two?
I actually think the timing's really good. And I know this for some people, they might think that's a little crazy, but I just feel like I came in at the trough, as they say. And I think you nailed the take before I came on that a lot of the things that Nissan is doing, it takes a lot of courage to do. It's not easy. With the layoffs, nobody likes that. I can tell already in the short period of time that I've been with Nissan that they care about the people. So I know this decision was not easy, but as they said, when you're trying to turn things around there, if the quicker you accept the pain, I think the better off you'll be. You have to accept that you have the problem to be able to start turning things around. We're both doing that at the store level and at the Nissan level. So for me, the timing, I believe, works out, and I think we're gonna rise up together.
Bill, where are we at net to sales right now?
That's
Give us a
we have
range.
made
Give us a range.
it hovers around 0.
Okay, but I assume
Uh,
that's an improvement.
Yes, yes. So the store has struggled to make money over the last 12 months. This is actually the first 2 months back to back that the store has at least made a little bit of money. So we're on the right track. And like I said, I had to put the foundations in place first. Now that we've got the foundations, and now it's time to start moving some metal.
Could I just ask? It's interesting to me, Bill. I love this concept of coming into a store and staging a turnaround. Like, to me, as an executive in an auto group, that gets me excited. Where you come into something, you see opportunity, you see that vision, that path, you bring your experience from your history. And it's interesting because I think in a turnaround situation, you see things in those first few days or first few months that you'll never see again. And if you don't address them right out the gate, they're gone. So you went in, you said, hey, I think there's opportunity in service. You said, not so much. I'm going to go to variable. What are, give us your top 2 things that you concretely saw when you walked through that door that you're like, look, I know based on my experience has to change for us to win in the marketplace. And then did you get resistance as you went in to implement those changes, and and what did the buy-in later look like, Bill?
Yeah, the first thing I did was just look around the store. I just walked through the store, and I wanted to see what the guests looked like when they walked in.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. And it was little things like just stuff laying around by the doors,
Yeah.
empty guest services in the service department, just little things like that. So we cleaned that up first. The other thing is somebody comes to the door. I want somebody at the door, excited to see them, glad they're here, ready to help. So those were kind of the first 2 things. and then being ready to serve the guest when they have an inquiry, whether it be on the phone, whether it be an internet lead, whatever. We had to say your first priority is speed. We got to take care of the customer quickly.
Yeah.
Those were probably the first three things.
Isn't it fascinating that that's not just second nature, that through the arc of a store, if you struggle a little bit, maybe you're used to COVID, there's a little bit of entitlement, whatever it is, like we get away from that arc of that ultimate experience, and the car buying becomes more of a commodity and less of a service. And I think it's really cool that that's where you began, or are the things that, you saw initially out the gate. How are those changes? Hey, we got to meet and greet that guest. How are they met at first by your team in the store?
Yeah, the nice thing is now nobody walks through the door without getting greeted wherever they come from.
It's the basics.
Sales manager, it's the basics, right? Like, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't have to be a salesperson. I don't want a sales manager that's hiding in an office somewhere that's not willing to greet the customer. If somebody walks in, whoever's closest, say hi. I mean, it's really that simple sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Bill Vaughn, we appreciate having you on the show, General Manager, LS Nissan. A turnaround in progress. And Yossi, I have a proposal. When Bill has that store to the point where that net to sales is 2+, we need you back, because we want to hear the rest of the story.
100%.
It's almost, who was the guy that had the rest of the story way back when? I forget who it was. It was on the radio. We need that, Bill. So
I definitely plan to get us there.
All right. Love it. Thank you for your perspectives today. Thanks for joining the show. Interesting, Yossi. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Bill is, he has courage, like I said, because he's going into a store and a brand and a lot of uncertainty, and many people wouldn't do that. So I respect that a lot. I think it's really cool to see, and I'm eager to see where he's going to be in 3, 6, 9 months, and we'll definitely bring him back on the show to hear how his progress.
It's fascinating to me, everybody listening to this show, it is back to the basics. Even a turnaround for a Nissan. So I don't care what the franchise is. You see those things out the gate, and as quickly as you're able to change them, that impacts your ability to steer the ship, which actually, Yossi, brings us to our industry spotlight for today. The topic today for the industry spotlight is Automotive is starving for talent, according to car sales guy. Shocker. He suggests the best salespeople should be getting rock star pay. Have we been seeing that recently? So this, according to car sales guy, if you're a superstar, I hope you're making superstar money because you deserve it. What do you make of this?
So first of all, I love car sales guy. Great person. I believe he works at a Mercedes store or Porsche store. And by the way, I'm pretty sure he's public about that. So I hope I'm not doxing him and indirectly. But so it could be because he is in a more, luxury store where experience and certain, things are just a bit different, or the demands of the customer. I do think that he's not wrong though, industry wide. Like, we have had challenges with talent. That's not something that's, it's not a secret. I would say I like to think about it pretty practically, right? A very simple, like, what's going to attract people to this industry? Well, I'll tell you what's not going to attract: long hours. That's not the first thing that's going to attract, but the money is obviously great relative to other entry level opportunities out in the market. And I think I've sort of tried to do my part in demystifying that on the platform and just showing what you can make if you put in the work, right? It's an industry where if you bring value, you put into work, right? You reap what you sow. And so I think that's sort of been my way, like, very practically. People want to get paid. The auto industry can get you paid. Here's how it's good. You're going to work hard, but maybe that can attract better talent over time. But there's no doubt about it. We need to continue we need to provide a reason for someone to want to be in the auto industry. We shouldn't just say, oh, we deserve good talent. Well, no, we don't. We need to provide a good reason. And I think with just all the innovation that we've seen in the industry, the groups that are growing, and how we've just modernized across, it could be the technology available to dealers. And, just you see organizations today that do things and provide, benefits and stuff like this to their employees like I've never seen in the past. Actually, you're a great example. Like, you guys have Ziegler University, right? Who would have even thought about that like 20 years ago, to have a legit training mechanism built into the dealership? So the point I'm trying to make is that we have the right foundation to attract better talent. I think it's all about bringing awareness to it with the public, and that's over time, it's going to work itself out.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people don't understand the opportunity that lies in automotive unless they're there. And that's why, to your point, we do value Ziegler University, because that allows somebody to entry level and spend their entire career. So Doug Klassen says, we all want to celebrate Bill's wins down the road, referring back to the Nissan turnaround and progress. So very cool. Well,
Oh, yeah.
Yossi, you ready for our next guest? Before we go to that guest, though, stay tuned after that. We're going to get with Ryan Knight, Director of Operations for Knight Automotive Group. Excited to talk about fixed ops, their venture into fleet sales, and some of the other things that they're doing in their auto group. But first up, we're excited to go to Ed Petersen, CEO of Wrench, to learn a little bit about what on earth is going on at Wrench. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ed.
Thank you. Good to be
So,
here.
Ed, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Wrench.
Yeah.
Just a super basic background.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of funny. I was listening to Bill there, and I'm probably the opposite of that. I did not come from the automotive world. I did not work my way up the ranks. I was a tech guy in the software world who happens to really like cars.
Yeah.
And when we started Wrench, we kind of looked around and we're like, geez, there's all this neat stuff happening in the auto industry, whether, on the technology side, whether it's, EVs or autonomous driving, or, whether it's, all the safety things, but how you deal with the basic day-to-day of just the hassle of maintaining the vehicle has not changed. And it still is, and it's still one of the biggest pain points, to vehicle owners. And so, we set out to build a marketplace and started to figure out, hey, is there a way we can use technology and data and grasp onto this sort of culture of convenience that is out there, where, I want to be able to solve problems with an expert on my time, on my schedule, and with transparency.
So your company has mobile service units, and you go to customers' homes and you provide the service at their house, right?
Yeah.
Who contracts with you, Ed? Is it the customer that contracts direct? Do you go through OEMs? Are you going through IADs or independent auto dealers?
Yeah, no, it's direct. So you go to wrench.com. There's really two services though that we do. We have, I break it into two buckets. We have an inspection bucket. So we're actually one of the largest direct to consumer used car inspection company out there. We run that under our Lemon Squad brand.
Okay.
And then we also have wrench.com and yourmechanic.com, which is maintenance and repair. And, that's the 80% of the things that you would take your vehicle into a shop for, or into the dealer, into a brick and mortar shop for. We take that in and do that either at home or office, and do it in a mobile camera.
So you saw obviously opportunity in this. Is part of the opportunity that OEMs or dealerships weren't doing this enough? And so it's like, hey, I see a place for us to kind of come. Like, I'm trying to understand if you compete with us, if you enhance us, if we can contract with you, what?
Yeah, on the independent side, we definitely enhance, right? And I would tell you, one of the products that we had a lot of success with in partnering with the independent dealers is our Wrench Total Care package, which is a prepaid maintenance package. And we sell that through their F&I departments. We're integrated into, for example, on the loans. I know we were talking about, underwriting, we're integrated into Westlake Financial and their Secure One product. We're also integrated into Dealer Center. So it's, it can be sold, these maintenance packages can be sold independent of the underwriter. And so that's one of the biggest ways we do help independent dealers. I think mobility is coming to OEM dealers as well. And you saw AutoNation buy, for example, RepairSmith, which is was a smaller competitor of ours a couple of years ago. And so, and I think the primary reason that mobility is coming is just consumers demand it. I mean, go ahead.
So how many trucks do you have out there, or vehicles do you have doing technicians?
A lot is the short answer. We have on the inspection side, it's in the thousands of guys that are out there.
Wow.
Running around. On the maintenance and repair guys, it's in the mid hundreds.
Okay. And are they direct employees, or are they contract labor with you?
Contract labor.
They're contract. And where do you find them?
It's, a lot of it is word of mouth. They refer each other. They're people that love the freedom, love the ability to run their own schedule, pick and choose the jobs they want to do, like talking to customers, like the variety of the work, and so it actually sort of sells itself. Once someone comes on the platform, they generally stick around. I mean, they really do like And so, that side's worked pretty well.
Yossi?
Hey, I do have a question. So, Ed, you mentioned you work closely with independent dealers, specifically on F&I upsells, right? So I understand you're selling this value-added product on the back end.
Yeah.
Is that, to the extent, do you see any adoption with franchise dealers with that, or is
No.
it strictly independent?
Right now, it's the primary thing is independent, but I do believe that franchise dealers are right around the corner. And
Why is that? Yeah.
Because mobility is the key. If you think about why do people not go back to a dealer, it is a pain. And it's, quite frankly, I'm living this right now. So where I've got a light on in my wife's new car, and the dealer is a half an hour away from my house, and I just don't want to go back, to be blunt. And so having the convenience of certain jobs, we can't do everything in the field, obviously, right? But having that convenience and having a mobility solution be an extension of your brand, of your dealership to that customer for certain jobs is great. It keeps you top of mind. It brings people back to the dealership. It brings people back actually to the dealer shop, to the dealer shop for larger jobs, for other bigger things that we can't do in the field. It really does work pretty well, and I think that's if you look at why did AutoNation buy RepairSmith? I guarantee it's the top reason.
What's your, when you look a few years down the road, I mean, obviously retention is big in the automotive space, particularly for OEM franchise dealerships. To the extent you enhance that, interesting, right? And what are your plans in terms of expanding? You've got thousands of technicians out there, thousands of trucks. Are you looking to grow? Are you looking for partnerships with auto dealerships or dealer groups to enhance their retention? Like what's your strategy go down the road?
Yeah, I think both those go hand in hand, right? We're always looking to grow, right? We are we're a business that is continuing to grow. Partnerships without a doubt are a big part for us. We partner with a lot of different people in this space, whether it's warranty companies, whether it is dealers, whether it is underwriters. Partnerships has always been a big component of this business. I think that the independent side, it is such a natural fit because one of the things we do is sort of level the playing field with an independent lot to an OEM dealer so that they can sell some of these high margin and high customer satisfaction services through their F&I groups.
Yeah, so the product is both an F&I product, and then it's the service on the flip side to deliver on that product, which makes sense in OEMs, but it also does feel like it competes with or it makes sense for independents, but it does feel like it competes with the OEMs. So that'll be part of the challenge, I think, is to see how that works playing well in the future, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the independent is certainly where we're focused because it is the best fit, right? I mean, we solve a real problem. OEM guys oftentimes are selling prepaid maintenance packages. Now, the challenge is I think the redemptions are much lower because getting back to the OEM is really, really hard, to be blunt. I mean, it's just not as convenient. So what do? We come in with a mobile solution that allows an independent lot who may not have the ability to provide something like that, the ability to provide it, and your retention is better because we're reaching out and touching the customer more.
Interesting. Any vehicles you won't work on? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Yossi.
No, well, I was going to ask him, and before we ask that question, Sam, is Ed, are you seeing any insights or trends from the last, say, 45 days? Anything meaningful, right? Whether it be an uptick in demand or changing segments, fewer EVs, more EVs. I'm just curious to know if, given all that's happened in the market and our CDG consumer survey, which stated that I think it was over 40% of consumers changed this over the last 30 days. They said that they were somewhat or very unlikely to trade in their vehicle given all the tariff news, which obviously means more fixed ops demand and more vehicles being serviced. Like, is there any key insight that you can share from just the last 30, 45 days that you've noticed?
Yeah, I'll break that into two parts. One of the EV side, we do a lot of inspections on that side, and so that has uptick, quite a bit actually. That side of the business, the used EVs are back into the marketplace at a pretty high level right now, and so we're doing a lot of inspections there. We did see actually when there was uncertainty in the market, if you will, some of the things you have talked about already, tariffs and so forth. We saw a little bit of a slowdown towards the end of March and into the beginning of April, but it has really picked back up. And so, we are starting to see more and more demand on the M&R side of the business.
Got it. Okay.
Excellent. And EVs, is there any vehicles you will not service, or EVs part of that? How do you deal with that?
No. EVs, actually, we do, a bit of work with them. They're not a huge part of the car park, obviously, at this point for our, metric, right? We tend to, 5 years to 12-year-old cars are sort of our wheelhouse.
Older.
But, we certainly take care of, EVs, they're a different set of services and a different set of things that go wrong with them. But anytime, as you all know, anytime there's a moving part on something, it eventually breaks, right? So, we do that. We're not, taking care of super fancy Ferrari. We're not going out and taking care of an Enzo, right? We're not taking care of if you have a McLaren F1, please don't call me.
Yeah.
But for the most part, our standard vehicles. I mean, we do a lot of European cars, right? We take care of a lot of Mercedes. We take care of a lot of a lot of Audis. There's a lot of the European cars, obviously, and then it does follow kind of what you would expect of the breakout of the car park.
Yeah. Well, Ed Petersen, CEO of Wrench, very cool to have you on the show today. Thanks for sharing your perspectives on mobile service. It's been fun to talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, guys.
All right. It is interesting how you can send that many vehicle mobile service out there, not factory or not dealership associated. As a COO of an auto group, I look at that and I go, is that competition or collaboration? It seems like there's a great niche that they're filling in the independent space, Yossi.
Yeah, definitely in the independent space, because most indies simply don't have repair, right? They may have some base, but retail repair, it's not really a big thing. Of course, you don't have warranty, right? You're not having the OEM payback. So I think it's interesting. A couple years back, I just wasn't bullish on this whole kind of mobile service thing. I just didn't think it would take off. And it has. And AutoNation did pull the trigger relatively early with by that acquisition of RepairSmith, which sort of kind of raised conviction in the industry, I would say. But it's definitely, I've been proven wrong in a big way. You look at Ed Roberts from Bozard, and of course, we're about to have Ryan Knight on as well to talk about, they're the fleet business, but specifically Ed Roberts and what he's done. He's built a machine, right? Dozens of just service trucks. And so it's the product market fit is there, right? I get it. If I can get it serviced in my driveway, obviously that's better. I do love what Brian Benstock is doing in New York and Queens, where he's picking up your car, pickup and delivery. I think it fits his market, right? Very urban environment. It sort of makes sense to do pickup and delivery in that market as opposed to mobile service. Maybe do both, but pickup and delivery probably makes more sense. But if you're in a suburb, there's, driveways, garages and all that. I can totally see how mobile service just makes a lot of sense. And frankly, every dealership should be adopting this to some extent, a form of mobile service, because it just makes so much sense for the customer.
It's the way the future, and OEMs are actually pushing for it. Our props to our Mercedes-Benz store in Hoffman Estates here in the Chicagoland. They've also done a great job with mobile service, and particularly as powering out of the pandemic. So speaking of service, Yossi, let's go in and talk a little bit about Busy Car. How are top dealers keeping service profits high? Well, even in uncertain times, they're using Busy Car, the easy button for turning recall opportunities into real revenue, built by dealers for dealers. And this is actually a true story. The president and CEO of the company is a dealer in Missouri. Busy Car's AI-powered recall management and mobile service platform helps service departments re-engage lost customers, fill service bays, and boost revenue. We've tried it within our own group, and it's an interesting strategy to combine AI with recalls, parts, availability on your schedule, and then bring that customer you may never have done business with into the store. And so whether it's remote service or in the brick and mortar, it's a great tool to help enhance what you're doing there.
Busy Car is the real deal. So they're obviously a great partner and contributor on the show. So we're going to have Ryan back on again, the CEO, to talk about some of what he's seeing in the industry. Maybe if we sweet talk them enough, they'll let me invest in the company as well. No, but they're the real deal. They're providing a phenomenal value and service to the industry. So I'm excited to see them grow.
Yeah. In fact, I think they'll be on this week. I am Boogeyman777 says, are we seeing an 08 style crash recession coming? Interesting question, Yossi. Your take on that question.
I love this question. I would say no, simply because people that are way smarter than me have run me through presentations and shown me data that sort of dispels that. No, I think in all seriousness, the percentage of cars that are delinquent past 60 days or I say where we're breaking records is on the deep subprime segment. And as a percentage of total loans outstanding, this is still well under 5%. And it's likely a lot lower than that. I don't have the exact percentage off the top of my head. But the point is, we're still talking about a very small percentage of vehicles out on the roads with these subprime loans. So, and I'll tell you one thing additional, actually, that frankly, the used car market could use some more repossessions. Not suggesting that I want that, but I'm just being
No.
factual. Like, we have such a steep shortage of vehicles still, used cars, that's still running. And frankly, if we were able to get some more used vehicles into the market, that would probably bring some price relief to the consumer. And so I simply think we're not, many things have changed since '08. It's not apples to apples, but I don't anticipate this anytime soon. We will likely see a rise in repossessions and obviously defaults because delinquencies are consistently rising, but time will tell. I'm not good at predicting or speculating, so we'll see what happens.
That's an interesting viewpoint. Increasing used car inventory through repossessions. That's fascinating. We'll have to see how that plays out, or if it plays out. I would tell you, Brian Benstock, his passion for the marketplace, the economy, and the future on Wednesday's show, like he had nothing but optimism and excitement for what lies ahead, even over this summer. So great answer to that. Well, Yossi, let's turn to our next guest, shall we? Let's go to Ryan Knight, Director of Operations, Knight Auto Group. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. So, Ryan, you're a second generation dealer with an unusual route to where you are today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the auto group.
Yeah. Obviously my dad's a dealer, owned the dealerships here, for over 10 years. And, I got to a point, graduated college in 2011, and I think needed to decide, what was the route I was going to take and what was that going to look like. Did I want to be in the car business? Obviously was the first question I had to answer. And I think decided yes, and then worked on a plan to develop my career and really spent the majority of my time outside of the organization here in Tulsa. I sold cars in Arkansas for a period of time, spent about 5 years in San Diego, and then moved back to Tulsa in the role I'm in now in 2019.
So before we ask questions about this path, because it is a little bit unusual, non-traditional, and I think it's a great, we can all learn from it. How's business this month? We're sitting mid-May. What are you seeing?
Really good. Really good. We're the Ford and Lincoln dealer in Tulsa. We have Ford in Bartlesville, which is about an hour north of Tulsa, and then in Stillwater, and then Volvo and Mitsubishi as well. And we've been fortunate with Ford and Lincoln and in their stance with the employee pricing and the tariffs, and their response to that obviously was a positive one. And we're off to a really good start for the year. Had a great April and should have a good May.
Hey, Brian, when you say really good, are you referring to retail or fleet or both?
Both. Our fleet business, over the last 2 years, we've really invested in that section of the business, both on the sales side and the service side. And, we're breaking ground on a Ford Pro Elite facility. We've broken ground. It will be done probably December, January of this year. And that is a dedicated commercial fleet service facility. And I think the stance we try to take is we obviously want to sell the vehicle to the fleets when we do it, but then we want to be a one-stop shop for the fleets, help them manage the fleet, obviously maintain the fleet. That's been our stance. We have an upfit company as well. We do all the accessory installation. So really trying to make it, one easy process. That's the last thing we've learned, that the fleets, the last thing they want to deal with is, trying to coordinate getting the cars to the drivers and the people that are using them. So we've really taken that approach, and it's really paid off.
Hey, Ryan, sorry. So question on that upfit company. What's the economics of that? Like, is it actually profitable to do that? Or are you just building, a lifelong customer relationship, and that's a way for you to kind of earn another customer?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's relatively new, and really created out of somewhat necessity. So we've obviously been in the fleet business for a long time, and one of the pain points for the customer and for our fleet salespeople was the turnaround time on an installation of a service body or a flatbed or lights
Got it.
or anything like that. And so we took the approach of, we think we can do it better ourselves, and it's turned out to be really good. And it made a decent profit in 24, and we'll do it again this year.
What, and just like roughly, what are we talking about? Like a range, like what's net margin on a business like that?
It's netted about 10%. The sales netted 10% of sales.
Got it.
Wow.
So it's
That did about
10%
10.
of
It was
sales.
like 8 last year, and we'd like it to be about 10 this year.
Yeah, and it's a customer acquisition strategy, so I think that's smart.
Yeah, it is. And we serve our fleet department only, for now.
Mm.
And I think that's been that's a selling point both for the fleet salespeople we have, and then also the customers that no one's in front of you in line.
And when you say the Ford Pro facilities, what's actually different? Are we just talking like bigger lifts and technicians trained in fleet, or heavier vehicles, or what's different?
Yeah, so everything up to an F-750. So we have the ability to work on everything up to an F-750. We'll have, we have a lot of, crane trucks and things like that are in. We do a lot of fleet service business now. We went through a big renovation of our service department in Tulsa about 2.5 years ago with, dedicating 15 lifts to commercial fleet, and then we ran out of room. So then the next move was to build this Ford Pro facility. There'll be one in Oklahoma City and one in Tulsa. Obviously, ours will be the one in Tulsa, and we're excited about it. I think there's a ton of demand. It's kind of an untapped market, and we think we're positioned to do well with it.
Your strategy, and you've talked about this a lot online, is creating those two different experiences, one in retail for the retail customer, and then a completely separate in fleet. You've backed that up with dollars and attention. Why do you feel so passionately that the two need to have such a different experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different customer. I think the need and the urgency, there's obviously urgency on the retail side, but having a fleet driver mixed in with, a retail customer bringing their car in for service just was creating a pain point. Those trucks are obviously, or vehicles are a lot bigger. So we just felt the need to separate them. I think it leads to a better retail experience at the main hub, at the Ford store in Tulsa, and then separating the commercial vehicles out. Obviously it creates a place for the commercial vehicles to go, and kind of keeps it out of the fray.
I think it makes a lot of sense because, you sit in a traditional retail store and talk about fleet volume. A lot of times that volume gets discounted a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Hey, it's fleet, the profit, the margins are different, finance, the whole experience is different. I think that's smart to separate it out.
We've worked really hard to create two separate businesses. And, I think you see the Ford Pro facilities, the next step in that is truly separating. We have dedicated commercial vehicle account managers for sales. We'll have fleet service advisors, fleet technicians. And, when you go and talk to a big fleet, that doesn't buy their vehicles from us today, that's a big selling point. There's not a lot of people doing that.
So F&I is a big component in the retail experience up front. How do you deal with that in fleet? Because you hear a lot, hey, they don't need anything, but they really do, right? How do you address that?
Yeah, I'd say we're a work in progress. We have 4 fleet salespeople today, account managers today. They do everything from selling the car to doing the F&I. So they're seasoned salespeople. They understand the process. Most of them have come from the retail business with us, whether that's a sales manager, an F&I person, or both. So we hear that, right? That, this account doesn't buy anything. This account doesn't finance them. I think as as we've inserted more retail salespeople like we have into the fleet business, you see that start to pivot a little bit. So we've made a lot of strides, and we're just continuing to work on it.
So you've met that need on the upfit of accessories and other things like through this Silo Hill Customs, which you created in 2022. If there are finance products that you're starting to see your customers, fleet customers, start to buy, what are those? What do you see as being those top?
Yeah, I would say the big one is the maintenance plan, right? So we're big believers in selling OEM products. So we sell Ford Protect and Lincoln Protect everywhere for Ford and Lincoln. Obviously, selling Ford Protect with the fleet business that we have. And I think what it does when we sell a maintenance plan is then you become like a cashless transaction. They don't have to worry about payment. They don't have to worry about, we can process it all. Kind of goes back to the one-stop shop. We're in the mobile service space. We're in the pickup and delivery space. So we can execute all of those things. We can go to someone's, yard or lot, change oil and rotate tires on, 12, 15 units, give them the invoice and say, we'll process the payment if they have a maintenance plan. So I think that's been the big one for us.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, what's your one of your biggest challenges right now? Like if someone is listening here that has maybe done this or part of this or can maybe be helpful, right? What are the biggest challenges or challenge you're dealing with at the moment?
I would say in service in particular is just the staffing. The same concerns you probably hear from a lot of guests is, finding a factory trained technician, a reliable technician. That remains the challenge. And you'll see like every single one of our shops, with the exception of the one acquisition we just had, all of the shops are air conditioned, right? That's a retention tool for us. The facilities are all very nice. We take a lot of pride in that. Those are retention tools for the technicians. But I would say that's the biggest challenge is just finding, we're going to open 30 bays for Ford Pro and we're going to need technicians to work there.
What's your biggest source for those new hires in technicians?
We have a pretty documented and thought out apprentice program. So we kind of build our own people. We've found that to be the best way to do it. It's kind of the long game. You can't do that and turn somebody from a loop tech to a senior master in a month.
Overnight.
That's been our strategy. And I think, as we've continued to grow and continue to look for technicians, we've gotten burned on a few where, you get sold a bill of goods and it's maybe not that, so I think we trust our ability and our people. We trust that better. We feel better about that.
How do you compensate your mentor in that case? So in the apprenticeship situation, how do you compensate the technician who's doing the training? Because that takes time, attention.
Yeah, it does. So we will set, a loop tech up, or maybe a loop tech that's ready to take the next step. We'll set him up with a mentor. And then the mentor will get basically 30 days for free. So the person he's mentoring any hours he flags will go under the technician's number and he gets paid. After 30 days, then the technician starts to pay for half. And that served us well. It's really helped us grow the business.
Yeah, these are such important details because people always tell me they listen, and in many cases they take notes and then they implement it in their stores. And so these are the tactics which are so helpful. So that's awesome. Appreciate you sharing.
Ryan Knight, Director of Operations, Knight Automotive Group. Super great to have you on the show today. In a future episode, Yossi, I'd love to have him back to learn more about his trajectory. He actually has more experience outside the Knight Auto Group than in it. And I think it's fascinating the perspectives you get there as well. So we'll have to have you back for that, Ryan, as we ran out of time today. But thanks for being on the show.
Definitely. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Ryan.
Super fascinating. Well, Yossi, what do we have in the mailbag, in the comments?
What do we got, Sam? Hit me.
Let's look at it. So DMC Flies says, do you think manufacturers will respond by lowering EV prices? And I think that's reference to the legislation change.
Yeah. Time will tell. I have no idea how it's going to respond. I mean, no one knows what the market clearing price will be. No one knows what just equilibrium of, with respect to volume will be. So Could happen, but the consumer is ultimately going to decide what they're going to pay. So whether they lower prices or not, you might end up lowering prices regardless. So
yeah, super interesting. Interesting show and interesting perspectives. We went into fixed ops, we went into fleet, we went into finance, we went into all the departments today, Yossi.
yeah, and I love when people share numbers. I swear, I think that's like my
Yeah.
favorite thing. That's the dopamine hit. When I hear like a number, like and listen, we're in the car business. Well, what is it going to be? Like, between 3 to 10%. Like, you're not going to hear 80%. It's not software margins. But it's the best when someone just shares that transparency and you're able to really contextualize it as a dealer or an auto retail professional. So it's pretty incredible, and great show today. Had a ton of fun. Can't believe it's already been an hour.
All right. Well, hey, Yossi, and to everyone listening and watching, don't forget we're live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you for watching the Daily Dealer Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business. If you like the show, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications so that when we go live on Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, you'll get a notification on X or any of your favorite platforms. Yossi, thanks for being on, and we'll see you next episode.
That's a wrap.